There were once two brothers, fraternal twins, who were separated at birth. Their parents foresaw that something tragic might happen to them right after the kids were born. So they made sure to write a letter to give the doctor at the hospital and made him promise to make sure that no matter what happened, that in the case of an emergency, that this doctor would give the letters to the kids. Give the letter to the kids. So lo and behold, the parents did die in a car accident shortly after the children were born in the hospital, and the kids were adopted by different parents. One was adopted by a family in Brooklyn and raised in a very traditional Jewish environment, and it was very common to have people bless God and talk about God and thank God and speak about God and learn about God and talk about connection to God. And so it was a very God-saturated place. And so when he would go to school, all his friends would talk about at lunchtime all the times that they experienced God and how they blessed God and talked about God and talked to God and God talked to them. And the only problem was that this young man, he did not believe in God. And so he tried to fit in. When his friends were talking around the lunch table, he would chime in with, "Oh yeah, one time I talked with God about this," but they could tell that he was trying too hard. So that didn't really work out well. So he grew increasingly alienated because he didn't feel safe to not talk about his doubts or talk about the fact he didn't believe in God. So he came to two paradoxical conclusions. The first is that there was something wrong with him. Everyone else, his parents, his friends, teachers, everybody talks and believes in God, but I don't. And therefore, there's something wrong with me and I'm broken. And he also came to the contradictory conclusion that all these people who are talking about God are lying and pulling a fast one, and they're just delusional and crazy. And so he wrestled with this all his life, and when he turned 18, he decided he couldn't take it anymore. So late one night, he boarded a 6 train in Brooklyn and was planning to go somewhere, anywhere. His brother was raised in a different part of the city, on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and also in a Jewish family. And this family didn't talk about God. They actually looked down upon God, and they thought God was used by primitive people, or people, not necessarily primitive, but ignorant people who don't have a better way of explaining the world, and or people who just want power. It's a great way to get others to do what you want. You just say, "Oh, God said to do this," meaning I want you to do this, but I'm going to use God to coerce you into doing what I want to do. So their dinner conversation was peppered usually with great conversations about literature and philosophy and the arts and the experiences with multiple cultures and how each culture sees things and the overlapping commonalities between them, which the young man appreciated, but he couldn't help but feel that there was something wrong with him, because every time his parents would talk sneeringly or deridingly about God or those who believed in God, he couldn't help but feel that he was betraying his friend. Now, to him, it wasn't that he had an imaginary friend per se, as much as just this awareness, this very primitive, this very just taken as a given that there was this friend that was with him, an awareness. And he didn't think it was God per se. He just didn't really think about it at all until he started feeling he was betraying this friend, betraying this awareness, betraying this part of himself every time he didn't stick up and say something whenever people talked badly about God, because he he felt that this friend had something to do with God. And he tried to fit in though when he was hanging out with his friends and they were talking about making jokes or looking down upon God. He tried to fit in, but he felt alienated. And so when he reached 18, he decided to run. And he did. He took the 6 train. He was going to head out. He was going to head somewhere else. And lo and behold, he's on the 6 train, and there's only 2 other people on the 6 train. There's a very, very troubled-looking, Hasidish looking young man, and what appears to be a homeless person in the corner of the train. So this young man thought to himself, wow, you look really troubled. And as he was just thinking this, the young man across from him said, hey, are you alright? You look really troubled. The young man was like, that was what I was thinking. And so he said, hey, I was thinking the same thing. And so the 2 strangers who were brothers poured their hearts out to each other, as sometimes strangers do when they meet and they're desperate. And the young man finished and said, I believe, and I don't know what this means. And the other man said, I don't believe, and I don't know what this means. And then the train stopped, and the doors opened to go into the next station. The gentleman in the corner stood up and went over to the 2 young men and said, I have a letter for you. I used to be a doctor, and I think this is the time for me to give you this. He gave them the letter and went on his way. And the young men, the brothers, unbeknownst to them, opened the letter, and it read as follows. It said, Dear my children, if you are reading this, then this must be a crisis time for you, and I have a story to tell you. There was once a great rabbi who also earned a PhD in physics from MIT. And one time, this rabbi, before him came 2 brothers, and one of them said to him, I believe, and I don't know what this means. And the other said to him, I don't believe, and I don't know what this means. The rabbi sat and looked at them and thought, I probably shouldn't have agreed to speak to both of them at the same time. But it was too late. So the rabbi told them this. He said, for you who believe and don't know what this means, there's no need to worry. All will be well with you. Because it is by following this belief, by strengthening it, you will be brought to where you need to go, and all good things will come your way. And for you that don't believe and don't know what it means, all things will even be better with you. Because being disturbed by not believing, having any question about that, is one of the ways God reaches out to his children. And I too once felt that way. And you will eventually find what you're looking for. Because sometimes wanting to believe, if you don't believe, is enough. Because all in all, we only hit what we aim at. The brothers looked at each other and said at the same time, we have a lot to learn from each other.